Back with another South African knife that came to me that's going to then ship down to Australia. So I don't know. I just find that interesting. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk about this George Muller. And in South Africa, they come up with kind of, to us in the US, unconventional namings of knives. This is the FL-XXX flipper. Okay. A little unconventional to me. I would want to call it an interface, a Hellraiser, a Delica, something with a name, but that's okay. ZT does similar things. Now, this was bought by Mike down in Australia, and he had it sent to me from Africa Custom Knives. And I'll put a link to their website down below. I would certainly go and check them out. They offer a lot of, I think they're mostly used South African made knives or African made knives, because I'm sure there are other knives outside of South Africa that are also made and offered. So George Muller oftentimes will send, maybe every time, a wire made creature, animal. This is almost like a little velociraptor maybe, or I don't know what he was going for, but it just shows his level of craftsmanship to then be able to bend some wire and create a little creature out of just some copper wire. It's very cool. This is something that George does most of the time. Now, before we get into the details on this knife, I will tell you, it is used. It has some scratches. It has some marring. It has some love attached to it. They disclosed that on the Africa Custom Knife website, ACK, and Mike bought it fully aware of some imperfections. It's okay. You can sell a knife that is not in mint condition. It's okay. They're made to be used. They're a tool. So I'm not going to point out all of them. There is a scratch here. There is what looks to be a little bit of glue or something here on the micarta, the Westinghouse inlay. I don't know what's up with that. There is just some other, just snail trails from carrying it and using it. And I am totally okay with that. It gives it some character, in my opinion. Got a beautiful Damascus blade, and that's all I know about it. It doesn't really give me any details on what the Damascus is. Titanium frame lock with a carbon fiber inlay bolster and Westinghouse micarta inlay on the back. Titanium clip and all that good stuff. Now, George has, there are a couple of things that I've seen on other George Muller knives that are not like, that could be improved perhaps. And that is the relief on the lock bar cutout. Down at the very bottom, let's see if we can zoom in and it'll stay in focus. Ooh, switch to the other camera. There, it's a little rough. And this was very similar to another George Muller I did before too. You can see it's a little rough on the edges. You can see the milling marks on the on the cutout face. And then that bottom piece is pretty rough. Outside of that particular imperfection, the knife is really nice. The rest of the scratches were done by the secondary, the previous owner or owners. I don't know. Maybe this changed hands a few times. And let's talk about the specs, and then we'll talk about how it feels in the hand, because we'll talk about that. 4 5/8 closed, 8 1/8 overall, 3.5-inch blade with a 3.3-inch cutting edge. It's 0.025 behind the edge with a blade thickness of 0.147. Weighs in at exactly 4 ounces, runs on IKBS bearings, And the overall thickness is really slim at 0.408. It's a little small for me in the hand. It just feels a little small. Now, there is still knife sticking out, so your mileage may vary, as they say. But for me, I think it's very much the slimness that it just feels a little bit small. I do love the blade. It looks really nice. It is fairly sharp. It could use a strop or so. What I would have liked, for me, it's a little uncomfortable in the hand because all around the scales is a very hard edge. And you're not going to really be able to see that. But trust me, it is a bit uncomfortable. I would have loved to have seen the edges all softened, maybe chamfered, or just softened, because it's very harsh. Other than that, it's a pretty cool knife. There is maybe a hint of lock stick, but nothing I would even worry about. So I think, I don't know what Mike paid for this. I don't ask. I don't care. I don't want to know. But you can still get great deals in the South African market, especially on used knives. And if you get one with a few blemishes and scratches and marks like this one, you're going to get a hell of a deal. So that's the Sharpie. Here it is next to the Spyderco Delica, since we pulled that out earlier. We also pulled out the Production Hellraiser, one of my absolute favorite knives that I just don't carry enough, and the Full Dress Interface, VC Edge Interface, which is one of my most favorite knives that gets carried way more than I thought it would for being 1.5 ounces. It just is amazing. So there you have it, the George Muller FL-XXX. Please go check out my South African playlist up here in the corner, because I've done a lot of South African knives. I really have an appreciation for the South African knives. And at some point, I'm going to own one. It'll probably be an Ericus Blumrus. That seems to be the one that speaks to me the most. And I've had several of those in. I've talked with him a couple of times on Instagram and or Facebook. And I'll probably end up with one at some point. We'll see. 2023 is coming, and maybe I will get something built in 2023. I don't know. We'll see. Thanks for watching, everybody. Mike, as always, thank you for sending this up.